And let's get to it. So what we want to do this morning, we built a doctor model and a patient model. This afternoon, we're going to complete the association by creating a appointment model in the middle. And that's going to contain the foreign keys for doctor and patient. So that's how we're going to finish up the relationship. So to get started, let's do the same thing we've done for the other models. We want to create the model itself, and these are the fields that we're going to use. So we're going to create a Rails G model appointment with location, day, reason, and then doctor and patient foreign key fields. And if you guys remember from Friday, Rails and active record gives us a colon references method. And so that'll do a couple of things. It will go ahead and create the foreign key fields. It will add that belongs to method on the appointment model. And we'll also add some extra kind of indexing under the hood to make our queries a little faster. We could do all of that manually, but it's better just to let Rails do that. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to do that myself here. So let's run that command, Rails G model appointment, location and such. And just want to take a quick peek at what that created. So it created the appointment.rb model for starters. So I'll pull that up. Ooh, not application job. Let me close down some of these windows. So that colon references goes ahead and adds the belong to method to the appropriate model. So Rails did that for us. If we check out the migration, here is the create appointments migration when we run it, and it's already going to build the foreign keys for doctor and patient. So that's all queued up and ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and run Rails DB migrate. That's not in the lesson, but that's usually what we do after we create a model. And then let's go into our routes file, and we're going to create a resource routes for appointment, or a resources routes for appointments. And we're also going to create this kind of a custom route called get all, because we're going to create a custom method that will kind of make it easier for our Angular front end to grab all of this data. So let's go to, close this down. Let's go to our routes file to start. And go ahead and add a resources appointments. And then down here, we're going to do a get request route. And we're going to call this get all. And when Rails detects a GET request to that path, it's going to forward the request to the appointments controller and a GET all method that we're going to create. And that needs to be a string, like so. So for our appointments controller, we're going to have the 5 RESTful CRUD actions like we built for every other model. And then we're going to add this custom method as well. And then don't forget to run Rails DB migrate. This is all of the code for the appointments controller. This is pretty much the same thing we've done with doctor and patient, except we have this get all method at the top. And that get all method, like I mentioned earlier, if we want to get all of the data for all of the doctors, all the patients, and all the appointments, we would theoretically have to do 3 different HTTP calls from our Angular front end, which isn't very efficient. So there's probably other ways to set this up. This is just the way I chose to do it. So I created a get all method that when Angular calls it, it's going to go ahead and send all of that data to my Angular front end, and then we can write logic into Angular controller that will parse out that data as we see fit. So we're going to take 5 minutes. I want you guys to, if you want to copy the code, I really don't care. Do what you got to do. But let's go ahead and create our appointments controller and get that file completed. So down here, I'm going to do a Rails G controller, and this is called appointments, excuse me. And let's open up that file. Here's our appointments controller. And I'll paste the code into Slack if you guys want to. I really don't like to copy stuff, obviously, but we need to get moving here. So if you guys want to copy that code, again, this has the 5 RESTful CRUD actions. There's really nothing out of the ordinary here except for that top method, that get all method. And it's not too complex. I just want to send all of the data to my front end. So I created that get all method right there. So go ahead and get that set up. And I'm going to go ahead and test this out in Postman. So I'm going to stop my server. And the first thing I'm going to test out, I'm going to do a get request to get all. I just want to test out that really fun method there. So let me call that. And this is what I should see. So before lunch, we created some doctors. So there's my one doctor. I didn't create any patients because we're going to go into Rails C here in a bit. So if you don't have any patients or appointments, we'll fix that in a second. But I do see that I have a patient's key with an empty array. So that's fine. At least it's returning all of the patients. And I also have the appointments down here. So again, unless you created patients before lunch or during lunch, this would be empty as well. And your appointments should definitely be empty because we haven't created any yet. So give me a thumbs up in Slack if you can go to that path and you get something similar. The main thing is just to have those 3 keys returned: patients, doctors, and appointments. So once we do that, we're confident that all 3 models are working independently, and then we're going to set up the associations, which shouldn't be too crazy. Famous last words, shouldn't be too crazy. I'll stop my screen share for the moment. And so I started uploading this morning's video during lunch. So that should be up in the next, 20 minutes or so. So I already have part 1. Okay, Kieran, hold tight just for a minute. Let me get this next section going and then I can help you out. Be sure to restart your server just in case, and look in your Rails console in the server logs and see if there's any more definitive, helpful error messages. It'd probably give you a line number, tell you the file, give you some more specifics. But if you're having an error, just hang tight for a moment. Let me get us started to the next section. So this next section, so we've created all the routes, the controllers. We played around with some of the data in Rails C. Now, the final component to actually set up the associations is to add some methods to the actual model files. Right now, the model files are pretty empty. There's not a lot going on. So let's fix that. So feel free to walk through that screenshot if you want. Oh, cool, you got it fixed. That's great, Kieran. I'm going to share my screen and let's walk through these associations here. The first one I have here is the doctor. So let's open up doctor.rb, which should be empty. And down here, let me open up appointments. Or appointment, excuse me. So remember when we use that colon references method, the active record method, it went ahead and added belongs to doctor and belongs to patient for appointment. So the only other thing we need to do is add those methods to our doctor and patient models. So for doctor, it's going to be pretty much the same for doctor and patient. So we want to complete the relationship. So we're going to put a has many method on here and signify that a doctor has many appointments. And I'm going to put a dependent destroy on here. And if you guys recall, dependent destroy just means, man, I always have the worst time with spelling destroy on the fly. So dependent destroy just means when I delete a doctor, it's going to delete all of the appointments associated with that doctor. Because if we delete a doctor from the database, we don't really want those apartments still kind of floating around out there. Or maybe you do, I don't know, but this is how we're gonna do it. So that's appointments, and a doctor is also gonna have many patients. And the doctor is gonna have many patients through that appointments model, right? So it's a has many through relationship. So we'll do a comma, and then we're gonna add this through method and tell the model, tell active record, that the appointments is going to connect patients and doctor. And the way it's going to do that is because appointments already has, in the appointments table, it has the doctor ID foreign key and the patient ID foreign key. So we're essentially going to make that relationship and those associations via the appointment model. So that's what that's doing. And then just one other thing, you can do or not do this. We haven't really talked much about validations, but there's a lot of really great validations if you check out the documentation. This is just some low-hanging fruit just to give you guys a taste of if you wanted to add model validations to your app, you can do so like this. There's a lot of different validations. This is pretty basic stuff, but you can add the validates method to your models. And what do we want to validate? Well, this is a pretty simple one. I want to validate the name field or the name column. Specifically, I want to make sure that the presence of true, meaning that I will not be able to create a new doctor unless there's some data in the name field or a value for the name key, if you will. So the presence is true, so it must exist. I'm also going to put a uniqueness. And this is going to be true as well. That actually is not a symbol. It's just a straight up Boolean like so. So generally, you'd probably want to put uniqueness. When Colin talks about authentication tomorrow, you'll probably put uniqueness on maybe, he'll probably set it up with like an email field, right? Because if you're using email for login, log out, or for authentication, you don't want to have two users with the same email. That's going to be, if that's their unique identifier, that's going to be problematic. So uniqueness would probably be more, more useful in like an email field, but just so you guys can see how it works, we're going to put it on the name field just for funsies. Okay, let's go to our patient model, and it's going to be, yep.
You don't need a second colon for true.
That's just the way that the method works. So presence and uniqueness are both methods. I'd have to look at the documentation. I think with presence, because with presence, you can also, I think you can add some more stuff to it. So again, under the hood, there's probably more going on. This probably looks more like that. It's probably an object itself. And uniqueness is just a Boolean value. But I'd have to look in the documentation for the specific reason for that. Let's go to our patient model. And I'm going to drag it down here because patient is pretty much going to be the inverse of doctor. So firstly, a patient also has many appointments, right? So maybe they have their foot doctor, general physician, whatever, like so. And again, just for example purposes, I'm not going to put dependent destroy on patient. You can if you want, but I just put it up here on doctor. So when we delete all of our patients, for example, if we choose to do so, all of the appointments will still be out there. So I don't know, maybe if you're setting up like a hospital app, I don't know if you'd want to delete it, whether you delete the patient or the doctor, or maybe you want to keep both, whatever you want to do. That's just my choice, my artistic license. And then this is going to be pretty much, this part will be pretty much the inverse. So a patient has many doctors through appointments as well. So they're both going to be using that appointments to find the foreign keys for each to establish that relationship. And then just to see how this works, I'm going to put the same validation on patient. So we'll validate the name, presence true, and uniqueness is going to be true as well. And we're just scratching the surface with validations. I would encourage you guys to check that out. But there's a lot of cool stuff you can do very, very simply with Active Record. If you want to check like the length of something, you know, needs to have a minimum amount of characters, a maximum amount of characters. If you want to have some sort of a regex to make sure, for example, that a password field has maybe an uppercase, a numeric character, and maybe like some other exclamation point or something character, you can add regex to that stuff. But yeah, I would encourage you guys to check out validations further. So that should complete our relationship. Again, we just had to add a few more methods to our doctor and patient model files. And then appointment is the intermediary model. And so it already had this stuff because we used that colon references when we Rails G modeled the appointment. And again, the schema is already like primed and ready to go. So the appointments table already had the doctor ID and patient ID. So those are already there in the database at our disposal. But to make those work appropriately with Active Record, the last thing we needed to do was just add these methods to our models. So now that we've done that, let's take a look at step 4 and let's create, let's test the associations. So I'm going to paste this into Slack and let you guys kind of walk through this on your own, and then I can help if anyone's having some issues. But we're going to test the associations. Let me see if I can paste in the code directly. So give me 1 second, because some of this code's pretty long and it's cut off a little bit in the README. And then I will, I'm happy to walk through this myself. But this is where we can really check to make sure that everything's been wired up correctly. So the first step to check the associations, go ahead and go into Rails C.
Do we expect the routes to be not nested?
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by not nested?
It's not like /doctor/appointment like we were seeing yesterday with authors and things, but you can just /appointment.
Yeah, you can set that up if you want. I'm just choosing it the path of least resistance. But nested routing is in the documentation I showed you guys earlier. But yeah,
I'm not sure if that was intentional because I don't really remember how we set that up. Okay.
Yeah, if you want to do that as a bonus, go for it. But you need to think about how you want to set that up, because if both a patient and a doctor owns an appointment, you know, are you going to have nested routing for both of those resources? You know, it's just something to consider. So I'll leave that to you. All right, let's go into Rails console and just want to kick the tires and make sure that we set up our associations correctly. And so here's some sample data. And if you guys want to copy this in, feel free. So first of all, I want to create a new patient. And I'm going to assign that patient to a patient variable because I'm going to play around with it in a minute. So I'm just creating a new patient. You guys should already have a patient in your database, but if you don't, there is a patient for you. And then I'm going to create one more doctor just to be consistent with the lesson here. So I'm going to create a doctor and assign that doctor to a doctor variable because I'm about to do some more stuff with this doctor. So this is Dr. Robert. This is the doctor I deleted earlier, but we're going to create a new instance of doctor. So I have a doctor with an ID of 3 named Dr. Robert. And then my patient is the ID of 1 because I only have one patient in my database right now. So if one of those is blowing up, the doctor we tested out, the patient, if you guys set up your stuff correctly before lunch, the patient should work fine. So now we have a doctor and a patient. How could we create an appointment that would connect those two? So I'm going to do this manually just to kind of walk through it. And there's more than one way to do this. This is just how I'm choosing to kind of walk through it. I'm going to create an appointment number 1 variable. We'll create a second appointment here in a bit with a different method. But I'm going to create one appointment, and it's going to be appointment.create. So it's capital A appointment.create. Let me clear this out a little bit. And let's go ahead and create an appointment. So if you want to follow what I pasted there in Slack, I'll just do a location of Grady General, day, Monday. You guys would probably want to get more specific with that, like Monday the what? Like, I don't know which Monday, but the reason for the visit, smelly feet. Not me, I'm asking for a friend. Just trying to do that person a favor. And here's how we can connect those folks. So your database may be different. So as long as you connect these with an existing doctor and patient, knock yourself out. But in the lesson, I'm gonna add a doctor ID manually to my doctor ID field. Now, when we create the front end, if you take a look at the sample app, I have that drop-down menu. So the drop-down menu already has all of the names of the doctors. So all I have to do is select the name of the doctor, and it's going to send the ID of that doctor back to my database to create this association. But we're just seeing how to do it manually. So I'm going to, I think my Dr. Robert was ID of 3. Did I delete my number 1 doctor? I'm forgetting. Anyway, I'm going to go with ID of 3. As long as you use a doctor with an ID that exists, you'll be fine. So this appointment is going to use the doctor with the ID of 3. And this is also going to be the patient with the ID of 1. So I only have one patient. And so I'm going to assume I'm creating this appointment for that patient. Patient Schmitty, I guess. So I hit enter, and I see that an appointment was created. This appointment has an ID of 1, and it also has doctor ID of 3 and patient ID of 1. So now, earlier I attached the patient and appointment to a patient and doctor variable. And here's why I did that. Just for simplicity's sake, if I call back my doctor variable, there's my doctor. Now, how can I see all of the patients associated with that doctor? A doctor would probably have tens, hundreds of patients. Well, the way that we can do that is you can do doctor.patients. So go into the patients table and grab me all the patients that belong to that doctor. And I get an array returned with all of the patients. I only have one patient right now, which is fine. But because we put the foreign keys on that appointments model, now I can do things like call doctor.patients to grab all the patients for a given doctor. I can also do patient, because I stored Schmitty. I'll do that one more time. I stored Schmitty to a patient variable. So now I can do the reverse. I can say, show me all the doctors, plural, for that patient. And again, this is a pretty small database. So right now I just have the one doctor for that patient. When we use the Faker gem, we'll probably have multiple patients and doctors for each and such. But the beauty of this is now now that we've set up the association through that appointments, I can do stuff like this. I can also create new doctors directly through a patient, and I can also create new patients directly through a doctor we'll take a look at. So this gives you a lot of flexibility. And while we're here, it's right there in the code. I can also do patient.appointments, like so. So I can see all the appointments for the patient. I can also go through the appointments to see all the doctors for a patient. So that's kind of the beauty of setting up your data in this way. You don't have to do patient.appointments.doctors if you don't want to. You can go straight through patient .doctors or what have you. So that's a really concise way to set up your code. So let me walk through this, a few more examples, and then we'll pause for a minute, and I'm happy to help anyone to get up to speed. So that was creating instances. Okay, all right, let's pause for a second. I'll stop my screen share. So if you guys can help me out, what are some of the errors that you're getting? Anything specific?
I think it's talking about requiring something.
Okay, can you help me out? Can you give me
Yeah, I'm gonna scroll. I'm scrolling up. It says missing method, and then the method that it doesn't understand is, hold on, I'm still trying to find it.
Undefined method patients for doctor. Okay, yeah. So you need to check your model files and make sure that you set up those associations appropriately.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe a misspelling or a colon in the wrong place or something.
So doctors.
Alejandra, if you want to share your screen, because I think maybe a couple of people with that error. Yeah, go ahead. We'll take a look.
Okay. So I tried it a bunch of times, but if you'll see here, like method doctors.
Okay.
So here's my doctor class or model.
Okay.
And then here is, I grabbed it from right there or here.
And I'm actually having the same exact error.
Okay. So we'll get it straightened out. No worries. So on line 4, Alejandra, it's presence colon true, for example. I don't think that's breaking your stuff, but that was the
So I have that in all
documentation.
Of them.
Yeah, I don't think that's the reason, but just FYI. So if you want to save that.
Doctor and hold on.
Yeah.
I don't have it there. Cool. So.
Yeah, save that. And then if you don't mind, show me your schema for a second. I wonder if you did a migration.
Did I forget it?
No, that looks okay.
There.
So you got Dr. ID. Yeah, that looks all right. So restart your server, and then let's go back into Rails C, and we'll check it out. And actually, we technically don't even need our Rails server yet because we're not actually using the paths and the routes. But yeah, I would restart your Rails console. Let's do that. Okay, so give me just type in capital A appointment. Were you able to create an appointment? Okay, give me an appointment.all. Okay, so you have
the one you gave us right there.
Okay, cool. Let's check your doctor.all. Let's make sure you have a doctor with an ID of 1. Okay, looks good. And then just one more time, let's do a patient.all. Let's make sure you have a patient with an ID of 1. Okay, so do this for me. Let's check this out. Give me, create a doctor variable. And how would we grab the first doctor from the array? If we don't know the ID, how could we grab the first one?
Like this?
Yeah, great. So go ahead and run that. Now, if we want to see all the patients for that doctor, let's try a doctor.patients. Okay, so there's your patient. Now let's do the opposite. So let's do a patient equals capital P patient dot first. Okay, now how would we grab all the doctors for that patient? Cool. So it is working. I think maybe you just needed to restart your Rails console or something. Actually, I think I saw Cody put in Slack. You may not have assigned it to a variable or something, but yeah, it looks like the associations are working.
Yeah, so the problem might have been that if we're copy and pasting from the instructions, we did set it to, we set doctors and the other thing, patients, I think, to ID1. So ID1 was the one that we created at first, which is not the doctor unless we rewrite the doctor variable.
I was getting that error even after I corrected that. That was a completely different problem that I had. Like, I had that error and I corrected it, but then I still have that same error that Karen is showing where it won't let me do doctor.patients.
And actually,
it worked for me now that I have it in a variable.
We can take a look, Alejandra. And now that I'm looking at the lesson, so Mike asked earlier about that colon true. I think I just brain farted because my screen's super small. We actually don't need a colon true for that. Occasionally we will use a colon true as a value, like a symbol value for certain keys. But I apologize, Mike. I just see that now.
I'm just more curious the difference, like why presence needs one but uniqueness doesn't need one.
Yeah. So you're right. So it doesn't need one in this case.
But so neither need one?
Neither need one.
Okay.
Occasionally we will, and it looks like it worked fine with the colon true, so I wouldn't sweat it too much, but I'd have to go back through the documentation for validations. Occasionally a colon true if there's some sort of symbol involved. But
should I switch it back?
I see that now. You can switch it back. It worked fine for you. And actually, once we start submitting forms and stuff or testing this out in Postman, that may give you some issues. Because right now we're inside of the Rails console, so we're pretty much like as close to the metal as you can get. Cool. Okay, so give me a show on camera if you aren't able to do like a doctor.patients or a patient.doctors. Okay, so all of you guys aren't. Okay. Sophia, do you want to share your screen and we'll take a peek? And again, I just used the doctor ID of 3. Like I mentioned, I just did that because I thought maybe I deleted my first doctor before lunch. Looks like I still have him, but whatevs.
Okay, so here's where I'm at right now.
Okay.
And for some reason, it hasn't been letting me. And I mean, the error here keeps pointing at appointments.
Yeah. So in this case, that through does need a colon. It's through colon appointments. Because it looks like looking at your error.
Looking at patients.
Yes, that's probably my problem.
Yeah. And again, just go back to the documentation because some of these are like arguments that you're passing in, and some of these are actual objects. It gets a little tricky with Ruby because we don't see the curly brackets or the parentheses. Ruby doesn't require them. So a lot of times, whether or not to use a colon, you just have to go to the documentation and kind of like see specifically what it's asking for.
Guys, if you're having an error, you might want to double check all your syntax. That's probably what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, Sophia, you may want to restart your Rails console now that you made a change to the active record validations, just to be safe.
All right. So doctor.patient.
Well, no, so that, okay, so we need, so capital D doctor is like the model doctor, is the capital D doctor. So let's do a lowercase doctor, just, yeah, doctor variable. Well, we still need to assign something to doctor, like doctor doesn't have any meaning. So let's do doctor equals. And with Alejandro, we just did doctor dot first. And so it should be capital D doctor because grab me the first instance of the doctor model.
Oh, right up here.
Yeah, so we created that one earlier. I'm not sure, I think do you know if you created that one successfully?
I did.
Okay. Yeah, so just run that.
There we go.
Okay, so return nil. So let's do a doctor.all, capital D doctor.all. And let's see if you have any doctors.
I don't think I do.
Okay, yeah, so you do not. So go ahead and run the line from the lesson, the doctor equals doctor.create. And yeah, so it looks like it's expecting a continuation of a line there, Sophia. See the little splat, the star? So do a Control C to kind of exit out. There you go. Okay, so that appointment has doctor ID of 1 and patient ID of 1. Okay, so yeah, so you only have one doctor. So just do this. Do capital D doctor dot first dot patients. Okay, so let's make sure that you have that patient created. So let's do a patient, capital P patient dot all. It's singular. Give me every instance of patient. Yeah, it is confusing, you guys, but you'll get the hang of it. Okay, so you do have a patient with an ID of 1.
It's just one Kieran and I had created. It's me.
Oh, okay. Go
Yeah.
back to go do an appointment.all. Let's make sure those foreign keys. It may have been that you set it up before you set up the relationship, so it wasn't indexed appropriately underneath the hood.
Okay.
Or we don't have. I thought I saw that you had an appointment earlier, but I guess not. So go to the lesson in that appointment_1 line.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so let's create an appointment, specifically an appointment that has a doctor ID of 1 and a patient ID of 1. And that'll be how we connect it. Okay. Now, type in doctor, the variable. Like, just let me make sure that you assigned that doctor to your variable. Okay. Now try doctor.patients. Let's make sure that it associates. So lowercase, we're going to use the variable.
Okay. Doctor.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
All right.
And now you can do patient. And again, patient refers to the patient in the lesson, the one that we created. It's a variable holding that patient. But you could do capital patient dot first
Oh, to get the
dot
first
doctors. Yeah, dot doctors. You could do that as well. I just assigned it to a variable to break it up in steps. So go ahead and run that.
Okay.
And that shows you all the doctors for the first patient in your patients array. Cool. All right. Who else is getting barfed on? Kieran? Anyone else besides Kieran? Mike? Okay. Kieran, go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a peek.
So I tried what Cody just said. I did doctor.first, and that comes out fine.
Okay.
But then I do doctor patient, and it barfs.
Okay, so it's doctor.patients plural. Go into the patients table and find me all of the instances of a patient.
So doctor.patient works.
Yeah, I know it's confusing, guys, but it's just a little bit of practice. So yeah, when you're setting up the association, it's going to be plural. Show me all the patients that belong to this doctor, singular. Yeah.
Oh.
And so you should be able. So you should be able to do a patient dot first, capital P patient dot first, and let's make sure you can do the reverse. Yeah, go ahead and run that. Let's just make sure. Let's check the ID. Okay, so that's ID of 1. So do patient dot first dot doctors, and let's make sure that you can just hit the up arrow if you want, and then put a dot doctors on the end. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So you have one doctor for that patient. Nice. Very nice. So it looks like that's working for you. And I think Mike was having some difficulties as well. Mike, do you want to share your screen?
It's okay. You guys can go ahead. Cody's helping me through it.
Okay. Anyone else having an issue?
No question.
Matt? Sure.
So I was able to follow along. Basically what's happening is when I do doctor.patients and patient.doctors, the associations array that gets returned is empty. But when I do doctor.appointments and patient.appointments, the appointment that I created actually shows up. So could the issue be because the patient and doctor I did are not an ID of one because I created them and then set the appointment to correspond with their actual IDs in the array?
Yeah, it could be that the foreign keys on appointment do not match those two. So I would check that, like go to that appointment and see what the IDs for doctor and patient are. And then just check that your doctor and patient have the corresponding ID, if that makes sense. Yeah, Matt, why don't you share your screen? Let's just take a second and take a peek.
So here, like I said, here's doctor.patients and patient.doctors. It's returning the array. But then if I do patient.appointments and doctor.appointments, that appointment was actually created.
Okay, so type in just patient. Let me see what's in your variable real quick. Okay, so your patient has an ID of 3. Okay, let's see what your doctor is. So just type in doctor. Okay, your doctor has an ID of 4. Let's look at you already have appointment.all pulled up.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have patient with an ID of 3 and doctor with an ID of 4. Okay, so usually let's check your model associations and let's just make sure that these are set up correctly. And that looks okay. Yeah, doctor looks okay. Again, on line 4, just go ahead and get rid of that colon before true. I don't think that's breaking anything, but yeah, I misspoke on that. That's my fault. Doctors through appointments, that looks okay. Yeah, and let's check your appointment. Okay. And then exit out of IRB and go back in there real quick. So just exit out. Let's just refresh it. Okay. So let's do a patient equals. How would we find the patient with the ID of 3? Cool. Yeah. And actually, you can just put parentheses and pass in the integer 3. So the find method expects the ID, expects an integer. Okay. And then let's do the same for doctor. I think your doctor was ID of 4, right?
Yes. Mark, just a quick question. Could we not pull patient.3 for like the third page? Oh, it wouldn't give us. Okay, now I get where I messed up.
Yeah. So Sophia, I don't think you had 3 patients, which is why we're so that's the other thing. Everyone's data is probably a little different. When we seed our data with Faker in a minute, we're going to blow up our database and we're each going to have 10 patients, 10 doctors, and 10 appointments. So it'll be a little bit more consistent. Okay, so that's working. Yeah, let's try your. Yeah. So it looks like it's working out. Maybe you just needed to refresh Rails C or something.
Yeah, that must have been it.
Thanks, yeah, Mark. No sweat. Whenever we make a change to the model layer, it's a good idea to, maybe refresh your console or your Rails server, if you're running the full stack. Cool. And this is a pretty, this isn't like the most straightforward, simple concept, these associations. It can be a little wonky for sure, but you guys are doing amazing. Is anyone else having an issue with that? Okay. So I just want to show you guys one more thing. So we're also able to create patients directly from the doctor. We're also able to create a doctor directly from the patient. And so let's take a look at, this is just 4 quick examples, and I'm going to walk through these along with you guys. I'm going to paste this into Slack. Okay, so again, try to be very mindful if your IDs are different than mine. I actually don't think our ID should have an issue here because we're using variables, but let me share my screen and we'll walk through these. Okie dokie. So this first one, I just want to demonstrate that if we want to attach a new patient directly to a doctor through that appointment, we don't necessarily have to create a new patient and then add that patient to the doctor. We can do all of that in one line of code using active record associations. So I'm gonna, if you wanna grab this first line, and I'll just paste it into the console in the interest of time here. And so I'm gonna create a patient1 variable. And notice the associations I'm making here. So oh, sorry. The other thing, make sure that you have a doctor assigned to a variable because that's what this doctor is. I think most of you do have one. But for this to work, just want to make sure that you have a doctor variable. So if you don't have a doctor variable, you can do something like doctor.first. Let me erase this. If you don't have a doctor variable, you could do something you could do something like this. Doctor equals doctor.first, just to play around with it. And so I'm gonna attach a new patient directly to that doctor, which is a pretty common thing, right? So it's doctor.patients. So create a new patient attached to this doctor, and then we're gonna call .create on it. And someone's mic is on. I got you, Kieran. So patient.create, and then these are the fields in the data to create a new patient, for example. Name Diesel, which is the name of my dog, insurance company, gender, etc. And let's hit enter there. And it created a new patient. And here's my new patient, patient ID of 2 with the name of Diesel, etc. So firstly, it's cool that it created a new patient directly from my doctor. But the other cool thing is that it also set up that association automatically. So now if I do doctor.patients, so now that Diesel patient is nicely already associated with that doctor. So I did that in one step. I created that patient and associated it in with just a couple of active record methods. And then if you look at the second example, that's just an example of doing the opposite. So let me grab a doctor. If you want to assign this doctor to an doctor1, and then for this one, make sure that you have a patient variable. So I do have a patient. So let me attach a new doctor to this patient. So maybe, you know, I don't know. Maybe I need to go to a chiropractor or something, who knows. So I'm gonna paste in this second line, a sample line from Slack. I'm gonna assign this to a variable just so I can quickly recall it. And I'm gonna call patient.doctors. So I wanna create a new doctor for this patient. This doctor's name is gonna be Dr. Foster, specialty veterinary, and gender of male. So if I run that, I can see that a new doctor was created, firstly, which is pretty cool, with an ID of 4. And now, if I grab that patient.doctors, now that patient has a second doctor attached to it. So the patient has Dr. Robert, and now that patient has Dr. Foster in its array of doctors. So just 2 ways, and you'll want to set this up, you know, when you're setting up your active record, you know, setting up your controller information in Rails that your Angular forms are going to hit and stuff like that. So these are just some approaches for how to set up your data. And then let's take a look at these last 2. And then we'll pause just for a second if you guys want to take a quick break, and then I can get anyone up to speed that needs help. The other thing that we can do, and actually I'm not going to walk through this, I'll just kind of show you what it does. So we've seen how you can create, I know it's very incestuous, we have 3 models, and we're just kind of exercising the associations. You can create a new doctor directly from a given patient. You can create a new patient directly from a given doctor. And I won't run this code, but I just want to show you. You can also create appointments directly on a patient, obviously. You can do patient.appointments.create, and then you could pass in, the details for that appointment. And you could actually also pass in the ID of a given doctor if you wanted to set up that association. And I think if you look at at this last example, this appointment _2, let me put that in here. So just as an example, so for this one, I don't explicitly put in the foreign key for the doctor or the patient because I don't know what those are. But for the doctor ID for this given appointment, I'm going to pass in the doctor.id. So I have that doctor's variable stored in memory, which is why I did that. And then I also have the patient.id, which is stored in a variable, that patient information. So this would be the same as, like patient ID of 1 or whatever, and patient doctor ID of 1. I think that's what the IDs were. We just wanted to demonstrate that you can create a lot of cool stuff, both directions when you set up a has-many through association. And it can be confusing, and it takes just a little bit of practice and doing it a few times, but it's a very at the end of the day, it's a very concise way to set up your code and your associations and stuff. Okay, I hear you, Kieran. Let's take a 5-minute break. If you want to work ahead, knock yourself out, this is the next section we're going to do. We're going to add the faker gem so we don't have to build all these crazy appointments, doctors, and patients, because that gets pretty tedious. So when we come back, we're going to actually use this faker gem to dummy up a bunch of cool data so we can really play around with these associations. So we'll do that next. So come back at 3:32 and we'll move forward. And then Kieran, if you want to share your screen, we'll take a look at your stuff. And let's see. Oh, so make sure that you have like your Rails server stopped. And if you're inside of IRB in any other window, obviously it won't let you do anything destructive to your database if you're currently using it. So just make sure that you've closed down any other tab that's using your Rails stuff. So let me run this one more time. So it drops the databases. Drops the databases, creates the databases, runs all of the migrations. So this is all of the migration information. And then Faker generated those, 10 of each. And remember that with Rails DB seed, it doesn't really give you any feedback. So no news is good news. But at this point, I'm going to pop into Postman and just quickly make sure that this worked. So once you run Rails DB reset, start your Rails server. And I'm just going to do a sanity check real quick. So I'm going to do a GET request to my get_all path. And now you should have 10 patients, randomly generated patients. You should have 10 doctors, randomly generated. And then you should also have 10 appointments. And each appointment has a randomly generated doctor ID and patient ID. So this is going to be enough data for us to kind of move forward and play around with your front end when you build the Angular app and such. So give me a thumbs up in Slack if Rails DB reset worked successfully.
Okay, I see what happened.
So give me a thumbs up if you have 10 patients, 10 doctors, and 10 appointments. And let me know if you're getting any wonky errors or anything. Let me stop my screen share for the moment. Okay, yeah, Karen, let's go back to you real quick. So if you want to share your screen, we'll take a look. So the next thing we'll do is we'll do a Heroku deployment and then put you guys back into breakouts to work on an Angular front end. Okay, so where are we? So we got, okay, so we got the seeds.rb. So Kieran, save your seeds.rb file and add them. Yeah, and then to Audrey's point, okay, so we haven't seeded the database yet. So go back to the terminal. Make sure that you're out of any Rails processes and any of the things. So Control-C, exit out of that. That's your Rails server. Okay, and make sure that you're not in Rails console or anything. So I would do a Control-C there as well in this window if you want, Kieran, to get back to the command line prompt.
Yeah, this one's frozen up. Nothing's working.
Okay. See if you can just close. See if you can close the tab or something, because that's still kind of in like Rails limbo. It looks like, or Rails C limbo. Okay. So go into the other tabs quickly and make sure that all the other stuff's closed. Okay, that's fine. And then check the other one. Is the other tab? No, that's Nodemon. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. So go back into one of the other tabs and run that Rails DB reset. Yeah, so it looks like it ran all the migrations, but I don't know if it seeded it. So we'll just make sure that. And we may have needed to reset your Rails server after you seed it. Okay, so fire up Rails server and go back into Postman. I think you'll be okay now. Okay.
There we go.
Nice, nice work. Okay, so if you don't mind giving me a thumbs up there. I see 5 thumbs ups, I guess 6 with Kieran. Is anyone else having any issues with the Faker gem or getting some dummy data? Everyone cool? Okay, so let's get you guys deployed to Heroku, and then we'll work on creating another Angular front end to consume this bad boy. And knock on wood, like I said, Heroku is built on Rails, and it's very, very Rails friendly. That's why it was created. So hopefully this will be a little not too crazy, or not as crazy as the mean stack. Okay, so I think for now, we're gonna skip that add data through the Heroku Rails console. We're not gonna do that because we already did that locally. I just wanted to point out that you can log into your Heroku Postgres database and you can run the same kind of active record association commands to test out your data or create data on the fly, just like you can locally. So you can always run Heroku run console, and that will open up a Rails console environment in Heroku for what it's worth. Well, let's just get this thing deployed so we can move forward. So let's run the number 1. So we need to get init your Rails backend directory. I'll share my screen and walk through this with y'all. So let's do a get init and then a get add and a get commit. And you can just call it whatever, first commit or whatever. I'm not even going to deal with GitHub right now. I don't really care. And GitHub and Heroku are separate. So you don't have to push this thing to GitHub in order to deploy it to Heroku, if you guys recall. Okay, so let me do a git status, make sure that we're all good to go. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is that Heroku create. And remember that that kind of instantiates a new empty Heroku project. And it gives you some sort of, you know, crying unicorn address or whatever. And then just to confirm, I can do a git remote -v, and we should have a Heroku remote URL. And here's the fetch and the push for that. And if you recall, if we had associated this with GitHub, remember we'd have 2 origin URLs as well. But we don't have to do that right now. You can do it if you want, but we're just gonna get this thing up to production. So once you do that, the third command, you can do a git push Heroku master. So make sure that everything's been git committed. And then let's push this up to master. Matt always gets Heroku URLs with Meadow in them. Yeah, maybe it like figures out your IP address or something and tries to make it a custom experience. And then you can always do the Heroku apps : rename and then the name of your app if you want to rename your stuff. So, and maybe I'll do that just to refresh our memories. So like the path of least resistance, we don't need to create a proc file for Rails. It's already kind of, you know, Rails is already pretty smart on that. Actually, I think if you check the documentation, I think this config.ru, this file is used by Rack-based service. There's already, like I said, Heroku is very Rails friendly, and so it already has some sort of communication built in. I've seen Rails files, Rails apps that do incorporate a proc file, but most of the time you don't even need one of those for what it's worth. So it'll install all of the gems and dependencies that we need. It'll install it up on our Heroku deployed server. And then, yeah, occasionally if you want to be really specific, it may be a good idea to set your Ruby version. We saw the same kind of error when we deployed our MeanStack apps. It said like, you know, specify a node version, for example. So if you want to go back, you can just add Ruby, you know, you can add something like this to the top of your gem file if you want. So no news is good news. The last thing we need to do is create the database or migrate the schema and such so that it will actually, you know, load up. Because right now this URL is not going to work. But it should work after this. So you can do a Heroku run Rails db migrate. And that will set up the schema and all that good stuff. It will set up all the tables for the database. Cool. So that's kind of the minimum stuff, but we don't have any data. So let's skip that second step that says add data through the Heroku's Rails console. Just FYI, if you wanted to go into the Rails console and add some data on the fly or investigate your data, those are the same commands we ran earlier locally. But I just wanted you guys to know that there's the Rails console environment in Heroku as well that you can play around with. Let's just skip down to the useeds.rb section. So let's just use Faker to, you know, seed our database with some good stuff. So what we're going to do is let's run that Heroku. Let me clear this out. We'll do a Heroku PG reset and then capital database. So remember that our database is completely separate from our production Heroku application. So we want to reset that. And when we do the capital database, it'll show us the so we have the app location, then we have the database location. So this is a way to grab the database location from like the environment variable underneath the hood. So like this suggests destructive action, Postgres convex will lose all this data. So this is the actual PostgreSQL kind of URL, and this is the actual URL of our app. So in any event, we just want to reset the database. Right now our database is empty, but if you wanted to reset it from scratch, so you can type in the URL or you can just copy it, and it'll say something like resetting the database done. So once we do that, assuming that we had data and we wanted to kind of wipe the slate clean, let's go ahead and run we'll just re-migrate it. Run Rails DB migrate. So assuming we had gone into Rails console to play around, I just wanted to kind of start from scratch again. So we migrated our stuff again, and then we can run Heroku, run Rails DB seed, and it should do the same thing it did locally. It's going to seed our Heroku database, our production database, with 10 doctors, 10 patients, and 10 appointments. And you can kind of see it in action. It's kind of fun. Cool. All right, so let's make sure that this works. So the quick way we can test it out is you go to Heroku open, and it should open up our app in another window, which it did. So let me copy that and I'll paste it over here. So when you first paste it in, you shouldn't get any data, right? Because we don't really have a root route for this app because we don't have any views associated with it. So let me test out doctors to start. So if I go to /doctors, you should see some doctors from your Heroku production database, because we still have the same RESTful routes that we did locally. You can also do patients, grab all the patients. You can also do appointments like so, and you should have 10 appointments. So if you are able to go to your Heroku app.com and test those endpoints, then you are ready to move forward. Then you're in good shape. So we created a Rails API app, we created a has many through association, and then we deployed it. And we use the Faker gem, which is a lot of fun. So we'll pause right there and make sure that you guys have your stuff locked and loaded. And then we'll move forward and start putting a front end on this. And the other thing you can do if you want to go into Postman and test out, if you want to try to delete one of your doctors, if you want to try to update or add a new one, you can play around in in Postman, and you can use your new Heroku app URL, and you should get the same result. So I'll put a prompt into Slack, or just you want to just come on mic and let me know if you're having any issues. And if you are successfully deployed to Heroku and you can get some data in the browser or in Postman, go ahead and take a 5-minute break. Come on back at 4 p.m. and we'll move forward. And I'll make sure that everyone else is up to speed. Yeah, so give me a thumbs up if your Heroku app is working. So again, for example, you'd want to go to /doctors, /patients, and /appointments. Like so. And you can also do the get all, because we created that custom route. You can try that one.
Sorry, I probably missed. Did you set a build pack?
Do what, Mike?
Did you set a build pack?
We
I might
didn't.
have missed that step. Okay. It's
Yeah, it
blocking
should.
my push because of the build pack not being detected.
Um,
I'm guessing it's Ruby, but maybe not.
or maybe Puma. It shouldn't even ask you to do that. You want to share your screen? We may need to update like your Heroku tools or something.
Sure.
But yeah, let's take a look. That's a pretty common issue. I just want to see.
The build pack.
Yeah, so usually that's when you would need a proc file, is when you get that error, but you shouldn't need a proc file.
Default language.
Yeah, let's try that. Let's go. You shouldn't need that though, but let's go to your gem file and
Okay.
let's just add that Ruby.
Gem file here.
Yeah, so at the top of the gem file, I think what it asked me to do was Ruby 2.2.6. So right there, yeah, right there under source, just hit enter and do Ruby space, and then in single ticks, do 2.2.6. Not back ticks, but yeah. Yeah, so save that, git commit, git add commit, and do another git push Heroku master. And let's see if that's helpful. Yeah, so you weren't even able to get to the migration or the siege yet, right?
No.
Okay.
Still.
Okay, so copy the no default language. Actually, copy the hint this occurs when Heroku and paste that into, or actually it is giving us the dev center link. I'm going to Google Heroku build packs real quick, but go into Google and we'll. So if you put that into Google, you should there should be some Stack Overflows that pop up.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be pretty simple.
I just wasn't sure if we had solved that issue.
Yeah, well, in the previous units when we installed the Heroku tools, it should have the Heroku tool belt. It should have done that, but maybe it didn't for some reason. You need multiple. You can. Okay.
Mike always makes things difficult.
Sorry, dude.
Try. You may have already tried this, Mike. See if this will work. You may have run this command. Heroku build packs :set Heroku /Ruby. Have you run that?
I have not.
Okay. Check that out. Kieran cannot run more than one free size dyno. Yeah, Google that real quick, Kieran. Like Heroku cannot run. Heroku kill dyno. Heroku kill dyno. What did it do? Failed to detect set build pack. So see where it says more info.
Yeah, I think that's this link, right? Detection.
Build pack set, git push Heroku master. Yeah, let's check, see what that says. Cody, do we have breakout rooms set up?
I'll make them.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go ahead and put folks into their breakouts, and then we'll continue to help Mike and Kieran. And if you guys don't mind, I see 5 thumbs ups for give me a thumbs up if your Heroku app is working. So I think we should have 6 thumbs ups. So if you don't mind just letting us know. There we go, 6, cool. Okay, so Mike, hold tight. Let me get us into lab time and then we'll come back. So for lab time, yeah, go ahead.
One question.
Sure.
So I had tested appointments, doctors, and patients on Postman using Heroku, but I didn't test get all. I just tested get all, and for some reason I just don't get anything. Do you want to?
Okay. Sure. Yeah, go ahead. That's okay.
Before
I want to get you guys into lab time, and then I'm happy to help out. But are you getting an empty array, or like what are you getting?
So this is my address. This is appointments. And then I also can do doctors.
Okay. Can you try get underscore all?
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter, to be honest, but did you write it in your routes, in your code?
Get all to appointments.
And in my routes, oh, okay, yeah. Hold on.
Well, I thought I saw it in her routes file. Or do you mean the method?
Yeah, I mean the method.
I don't.
Yeah. So we put that method in our appointments controller.
There we go. Yeah, it's there.
Point at all. And then go back to your routes.rb file.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you've got that.
And
I would
when I do it like on here, let's say I'll just change it. When I do get alls on my regular local, that works.
Go back to the routes. I wonder if it has something to do
right here, or the routes.
Sorry, go back to the routes. Appointments. Yeah, I was checking the spelling.
Wait,
that looks right.
It might be I was gonna say maybe it's because we didn't seed appointments, but I just looked. We do have a seed for deployments.
Yeah, but she is able to get like all the doctors and all the patients. So Alejandro, just hold tight for a second. And let me get the other folks. We'll get you straightened out though. So for lab time, just want to get you guys already in there and working. If you click on this link, it'll send you to the specific part of the lesson. So you should have your Rails API deployed and seeded and up on Heroku, which is awesome. So similar to Friday and this weekend, just want you guys to work on creating an Angular front end for that back end. Specifically, the really important part of this is getting that form to work. It's not too crazy to create a form like add a song to an artist. But when you're dealing with a more complex association, you really need to think about the, I gotta mute somebody. When you're doing a little bit more of a complex association, you really need to think about dialing in the forms and stuff. So that's really kind of the most important part. If you click on that section of the README, it will, again, you guys have done this ad infinitum. It will walk you through creating a Node Express Angular app on the front end. So walk through that, and I actually give you kind of the first, when you first open up the app, I have that $HTTP get that will grab all the doctors and just some basic console log stuff there. But this is kind of the minimum amount of code to get you guys up and running. Don't worry about UI router for this one. It's just kind of a single page app. And here's the link again to how it should behave. So this is kind of the finished version. Or again, this isn't like the end all be all. It's just one way to do it. And for some reason, when I was playing with this weekend, if you go to the network tab, I have it like a house. I had an image of the whole background of the cast of House, and now it's not loading. So I'm gonna have to go back and maybe push that back up. But in any event, you can see how the app behaves with that link. But we'll be working on that probably till 5:30. So if you get in the jam, if you have any questions, just ping us. Otherwise, that's going to be lab time for this afternoon. So any questions about lab? And I'll put in a few little bullet points from the lesson there, some things to kind of focus on. All right, cool. So Cody, if you want to open those up, and then we'll get Mike, Kieran, and Alejandra good to go.
Yeah, they're open.
Cool.
Who's first? Are we still helping out Mike first? Or?
Yeah, Mike was first in the queue. Mike, do you want to?
No rush.
Yeah.
I'll just keep Googling it. Maybe
Okay. Yeah, if you want to hold tight, I think Alejandro will be a kind of a quick fix. So Alejandro, do you want to share your screen again? So did you change any code locally after you deployed? I wonder if maybe you changed something that hasn't been pushed up. So if you go to your let's do a get status. Let's just
you're muted.
Okay, sorry, I was talking.
Yeah.
I didn't change anything at all, actually.
Okay, let's do a get status just to confirm that. Because if everything's working fine locally, it should work up there. Yeah, okay. Let's check your routes one more time.
Yeah, the routes look right. Can we see the controller again?
Let's get all. I wonder, so have you finished fleshing out all the methods for appointments, Alejandra? Like the index, the show, all of that stuff?
Oh, no, just get all is the only one I have.
Yeah, I don't think that shouldn't be an issue, but appointment.all is the Rails console active record command. I wonder, since you don't have the other index show and such in there, maybe it's giving you issues with the Heroku routing. But it's loading up fine locally. It's interesting. Very interesting.
He's trying to get add and commit and push again. I don't know.
And do I do this individually only for appointments, or do you want me to also get everything else?
And it's appointment.all with the lowercase a on the all. Yeah, I mean, we should have 5 CRUD actions for each controller, right? That's what we've been working on today. So you should have
You can just copy and paste it if you want. I don't know if that's fast. I meant it's on the Matey channel where we copy and pasted.
What?
Mark put a snippet in the Matey channel. Maybe scroll up a little.
Right.
A little more. Nah, a little more. Little more. Little more.
A lot more.
Yeah, I guess a lot more at this point. Yes, that one.
Okay.
Yeah, just grab all of that. Let's see if that's helpful.
But
if it's working locally, it should work.
It's working locally.
Yeah.
I don't know why. That's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, we may just want to restart your Heroku app and reseed it or something.
Let's just try one more time because it maybe.
What's the error?
There.
You can't get in Heroku.
Get all. So
yeah.
I tested doctors.
Oh wait.
What?
Can you go back to get all again on this? On your Postman? I think I know the error.
Okay.
Can you change the output to JSON on the bottom? I don't know if that matters or not.
Oh,
actually, no, it says,
yeah,
it says
good catch.
Yeah.
Is this all?
Can we try again?
Well,
No.
but the other ones were doing it.
Yeah.
I think
but
you can
this is
also.
not found. So I guess that route's not even found. Yeah.
It doesn't let me.
Yeah, because it's not found. Never mind.
Wait. Alejandra,
Yes.
can you show me the controller really quick? Just a fresh pair of eyes. Well.
I just added this stuff, but before I only had this.
Okay. Can you show me the route for it?
Yeah.
It works locally, Colin.
It does.
So let's see. I can do get all here, and I get all of them.
Can you show me really quickly? Can you just run go to your terminal?
Yes. Where do you want me to
go? Wherever. But can you run Heroku logs -- tail? Can you scroll up? All right, scroll down back to where the purple one is. So that's appointments. Scroll down to the bottom.
All the way?
Can you make your get all request again while we're watching this?
Yes. To my...
To the Heroku, yeah.
I did it. I'll do it. I mean,
Alejandra, if that route works, you should also be able to go into the browser and go to your Heroku app /
I tried the browser also. I can only get doctor's appointments. So appointments, it's fine. Doctors, doc, there's there. And then the last one was patients. This one right here. And then when I try to do get all, this happens.
Okay, can you go to the console real quick in the browser and just see? So that's suggesting that the route doesn't even exist, but it works. Yeah. See, it doesn't have / get all. It's just get _all.
And I here have the /.
Yeah.
Should I just
Can you show me the controller really quick again?
Yeah. And all of this is new. I didn't have that. I just had this.
Yeah.
If it makes any.
Okay. Render JSON. Can you just change it to like just patients.all and just see like just to something smaller? And let's just see if the error is like a route issue or if it's, because if this works, then it's something specific with what's going on there.
Like that?
Yeah. And then can you just add and push this really quick?
What was it? Heroku something.
You had to commit.
You have to just run commit and then git push Heroku master.
What was the second command? Heroku?
Git push Heroku master. So okay. And can you just refresh the browser and let's see what happens? Can you run, yeah, okay.
Can you try get all? Oh, did we try that?
Yeah.
I tried it.
Alejandro, can I see your other controllers for a second in local?
Yeah. I just gave you a control, but my other controllers are here.
And can I see the other one too? All right. And does it work on local?
Yeah, you can try it out.
Yeah, it works locally.
Oh, interesting.
That's obnoxious.
Can you do a, oh, sure. I wonder what Rails route says.
Hello. Figured this would be easier.
There's just something like silly happening. Can you go back to your Atom, Alejandro?
I should have tested this because I just tested doctor's appointments, but I didn't test it all.
Maybe
because it worked on local.
I don't know if this works, but maybe try putting like 3 different resources instead of separating it by commas. I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And the issue isn't those. The issue is that get all doesn't, like, as a route, is not working.
Yeah, it's not working when pushed, at least.
Can you just rewrite? Well, yeah, it's working locally. Are we like in lab right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if just blow up or just try to redeploy it, like blow up the Heroku remote. I don't know.
Yeah,
It works non-locally. And I think she did, or I think she just deployed it again, but a while ago it was get status. There were no updates or anything.
Yeah, you know. Let's just see. Actually. Can you pull up your Postman really quick?
Sorry, I have like so many things
it's okay.
open.
Okay, so that works. Oh. Okay, good. So that's not working. If I try it locally. Why would that work? Why would it work there but not here? And this is the Heroku Run console.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if maybe there was something I could see there, but
What's so odd is it's like, I'm not even seeing. We're not even seeing, wait, whoa. So this is why, possibly.
Yeah, Alejandra, I think you're trying to hit my app instead of your app. Doctors dash app, my app,
what? I
not
don't know.
your app.
So what?
Do a Heroku open.
Yeah, so basically this Heroku right here, this is Mark's Heroku, not yours, right? Because yours is doctor's backend app. So what we'll do is we'll just do get remote remove Heroku, get remote add Heroku, and then let's see, it should be https:// get.heroku.com/doctors app backend .get.
Okay.
Wait, isn't Mark? That's your URL, right?
Yeah, that's my deployed app for example.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that was hers.
Yeah.
This one is actually yours. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So Alejandra, you're hitting Mark's URL in Postman, not your deployed app, because every URL must be different. So then your deployed app is Quiet Citadel 52998.heroku.com. So that's the route you want to hit.
So that's why nothing's working for me.
Well, it is working for you. It's just
yeah,
a totally different server.
Yeah, I had not pushed the get all method up yet. I hadn't gotten that far.
Yeah, so you were not testing your code. You were testing Mark's code.
Yeah, you're hitting my API.
So like now I want to check that everything's working.
Yeah,
it looks like it is. Your get all is working. So
yeah, it looks like your stuff's working.
Yeah.
Cool. So can you guys explain to me really quick? So when I do remote this thing right here and it gives me these two lines, mine is the one where I fetch or push. I'm a little confused here.
So they're both the same, right? So all it is it's just a Git repo, same as how it works on GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just saying that those two things it's showing, it's just saying that you have push and pull access to that Git repo. It just happens that that Git repo lives on Heroku instead of on GitHub.
And then when I do Heroku open, that address is the one that I'm hitting to get the API.
When you do Heroku open, it's actually opening up this HTTP. So notice there's two different URLs, right?
Mm-hmm.
https://get.heroku.com. That's where your code lives. But if you look at the thing that you're hitting, the URL that you're hitting in Postman, it's like the actual app URL.
Okay.
So when you run Heroku open,
so
Heroku
basically,
just doing something fancy to actually open up the URL to the app.
okay, so
if you go to, for example,
hold
if
on.
you go to your student repo in the terminal.
Sorry.
So if you go to your student repo in the terminal.
You want me to go in the repo right now?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, and run git remote -v. So you have two things here, right? You have origin, you have upstream.
Mm-hmm.
They look about the same as your Heroku ones, right? If you compare what the Heroku ones look like up there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you can go to this URL and access the GitHub repo, right? This is how Git and GitHub are tying the two pieces together. So this is where the Git repo lives. But GitHub knows that, like, you know, if you go to your username /GAstudent/WRemote80, it's gonna open it up in the, you know, it's going to open up a web page.
Like this one. So this would be the address that I'm trying to, like, to correct. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, because this is the actual URL, right? But in order to push your repo from your computer to here, you need to use the Git remote, right? Which looks different, right? It's the Git dot whatever stuff.
So this, oops, wrong. Okay, so this is my actual address, like when I deployed, let's say, the pet app or whatever.
Right.
Okay. And then I'm calling, I'm getting that API, that route to get this information back.
Yep. And then
Thank
when
you.
you're pushing it to that remote, right? And Heroku is handling, like, oh, there's code here. Let's, you know, run the server and all that stuff.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. How do I go? Let's see. Join breakout. Okay, awesome.
That was a funny error, man.
I can't believe that didn't like go off in my head. That's great.
Yeah, I think my natural instinct was like, oh, she named her Heroku app instead of thinking that it was somebody else's.
Good stuff.
Noobs. Just kidding.
Right. I need like 5 minutes. I'll be right back.
Wait, Mark, you're still recording.
Oh, I thought